Honorable Member for Choiseul, Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister with responsibility for commerce, industry, investment, enterprise development, and consumer affairs.
Madam Speaker, I'm not sure if it's my place to just slight correction. It's always Choiseul Saltibus. Yes.
My apologies, sir. Choiseul Saltibus.
Can I get the... Not yet. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it gives me great pleasure today to join those before me to make my contribution on this debate, which I believe is the most important policy document of the government of the plans for the next 12 months to stimulate the domestic economy through its public sector investment policy, to support the private sector through business environment and tax policy reforms, and address the needs of as many disadvantaged and vulnerable persons as possible through income redistribution programs. Madam Speaker, since this is my maiden voyage and first opportunity to participate in this budget exercise, I wish to seek your leave and beg your indulgence to allow some latitude for me to give thanks. Because I want to give thanks to the Almighty for waking me up today and providing me with just enough strength, health, wisdom, and patience for daily living. I would like to give thanks to my family and friends for their support, love, and nourishment. And Madam Speaker, last but not least, to give thanks to the constituents of Choiseul Saltibus for the emphatic decision in electing me as a parliamentary representative and providing me with the opportunity to serve in this ministry responsible for the critical departments of enterprise development and consumer affairs, areas which I believe impact their lives daily. I wish to tell them, Madam Speaker, that I promise to dedicate service with the best interest in my decision-making. And Madam Speaker, when this House convenes, I think in the next 2 weeks, to debate the policy position, I will provide details of what my community can expect to benefit from this financial year. Madam Speaker, before I go into the gist of my contribution, I must commend the Minister of Tourism for what I believe was an eloquent presentation on the matters in his ministry. Unlike the previous Minister of Tourism, who continuously made mention when he was Minister of Tourism on telephone bills. But Madam Speaker, you know, it is not my personality, and I had promised myself in going into politics, I would not get involved in the halikasi, you know. But I want to make mention to the leader of the opposition that if it's one thing he said, which is true in his presentation, and I would like to quote him, Madam Speaker, because I actually took a note of it. He actually said that, yes, it is difficult to raise money on the bond market. That's a fact. And that is, Madam Speaker, something we must not lose sight of, because this is the premise on which this budget was formulated, Madam Speaker, to build this economy to a position where investors will have confidence to purchase our bonds. Madam Speaker, the estimates today, they follow one basic yet fundamental rule, and that is you cannot spend more than you earn. I wish to applaud the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance because I believe he has approached this budget process very differently. A difference I believe, and I dare say, we lay the foundation for a more stable economy. The budget is not about being expedient or to achieve short-term gains, but building a process and creating a strategy to grow. You see, Madam Speaker, there are signs around the region where people follow the business-as-usual attitude, and now their foundation is crumbling. We need to take stock of that, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, your spending and actions must make economic sense. And we should not just follow, but we need to question, should we continue to just bury our heads in the sun and exposing our vulnerabilities? Madam Speaker, the sad reality is that we know exactly what the problem is and what has to be done to fix it. But we are so comforted in our temporary luxuries, we keep fooling the people to maintain our place around the table. Madam Speaker, I want to use an analogy to describe what we are faced with and what we have to deal with. I'm sure you're very familiar with the ficus plant. I know you love plants, Madam Speaker. And around St. Lucia, the ficus plant is used to decorate yards and create fences. But this ficus plant have a very razor-slim root, Madam Speaker. And that ficus plant can destroy your foundation. So as much as you see the beauty of the ficus plant creating a hedge, it can destroy your foundation. And it chokes up septic tanks, and it causes a stench. And you know the smell, Madam Speaker. I'm not sure if I can use the word caca in this house, Madam Speaker. But Madam Speaker, how to say it in English? Madam Speaker, there is a saying that if it ain't broken, why fix it? Well, Madam Speaker, that's the illusion that has been sold to our citizenry. And most of the time, people will follow the tone set at the top. You can ask the banks, Madam Speaker, and they will tell you how many people in our society live above their means. We are very broke. And when the PM advised that any new borrowing must have its own revenue stream, I realized that this was a leader serious on changing the status quo. The first statement from the PM when my ministry was making our budget presentation was to defend your budget. So whether it was 70,000, 700,000, 7 million, or 700 million, you had to prove beyond doubt that it was critical for the effective operations and work programs of the unit. It is my understanding that the PM was consistent across the board with the process. And so, Madam Speaker, in my contribution today, I will be giving a summary of the achievements of the Department of Commerce, International Trade, Investment in Enterprise Development and Consumer Affairs. That summary will be over the last 10 months, bearing in mind that I inherited a budget which automatically framed the nature and scope of the interventions that could realistically have been undertaken. I will also provide this Honourable House a sense of the challenges and constraints that we are faced as we endeavour to improve on the performance of the private sector and outline the interventions that we will be pursuing in this new financial year. Madam Speaker, St. Lucia is defined as a small economy. And as a result, all the key elements that can be deployed to assist the growth of the private sector are circumscribed by the external trading environment. To put it simply, if we fail to ensure that our tariff rates on bread, for instance, are not placed at the appropriate level, then our local bakers might very well find themselves facing undue competition. While they may not be exporters of bread, but their very own livelihoods can be affected by international trade, in this case, importation of bread. Or for instance, if we fail to have an effective trade licensing regime, our up-and-coming graphic designers or architects may find themselves competing in their own country with a multinational corporation established in St. Lucia and offering graphic design and architectural service. A trade license regulates what companies we are allowed to establish and invest in St. Lucia and those we keep out. This, Madam Speaker, is a right and privilege that all countries enjoy, and hence the reason why countries engage in negotiations of investment agreements to guarantee specific rights from each other. Therefore, Madam Speaker, notwithstanding the non-allocation of a specific budget to the International Trade Unit in the 2016-2017 budget, the unit was able to complete St. Lucia's market access offer in the CARICOM-Cuba Trade Agreement, submit all WTO notifications due for the period under review, submit the instrument of acceptance for the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement, which came into force on February 22nd, 2017, St. Lucia's Independence Day. They were also able to coordinate efforts at the national level to ensure compliance with WTO provisions as it relates to notification of relevant new and existing trade policies or programs. They were able to secure capacity building and training for stakeholders to increase stakeholder knowledge and understanding of St. Lucia's intra-regional trading agreements. They were also able to complete the preparation of a memo for protocol amending the WTO trade-related intellectual property rights, the TRIMS agreement. And therefore, Madam Speaker, I wish to employ my ministry for work well done. In this new financial year, given the new alignment of international trade under the department responsible for enterprise development, the unit will benefit from financial resources to undertake much of its work program. So, Madam Speaker, along with the regular work program of the unit, emphasis will be placed on implementing the TFA. Developing countries like St. Lucia that wish to benefit from flexibilities in this agreement must move speedily to implement the provisions to facilitate trade within an 18-month period. Cabinet will therefore reactivate the National Trade Facilitation Committee, which will be responsible for coordinating the acquisition of technical assistance and capacity building support from donor countries. In addition, the International Trade Unit will engage in a comprehensive public education program aimed at the transfer of knowledge and information on international trade to relevant private and public sector partners. The whole idea is to help the business community understand the opportunities, challenges, and threats that the various international trade regime poses to them, and hence place them in a position to develop the appropriate strategies to respond. The public education program will also attempt to get governments, departments, and agencies to more systematically factor St. Lucia's international trade arrangements into the design of their work, so that greater advantage is taken of the provisions of these agreements. I wish to speak to the micro and small enterprise development. Madam Speaker, having established, albeit in a very brief manner, the role of international trade in shaping our domestic economic space, I will first speak to the product development initiatives that we have embarked upon and intend to implement in this new financial year to build the competitiveness of our private sector. I will subsequently address the reform measures aimed at creating a more efficient and conducive environment of the private sector. And I will finally address the support measures that we intend to introduce to help our enterprise maximize the opportunities. Therefore, Madam Speaker, in terms of actions undertaken aimed at building the competitiveness of the private sector, I will first focus on the micro and small enterprise sector, since this sector comprises of 75% of enterprises in St. Lucia and is one of the largest employment sectors and serves as a base from which St. Lucian companies will grow to make their mark in the global marketplace and continue the path-breaking tradition well established by our global luminaries, Sir Arthur Lewis and Honorable Derek Walcott. We might be from a very small country, Madam Speaker, but once the opportunity presented itself, we have demonstrated that we have the capacity to be the best on the global stage. I will digress shortly just to make a mention of one of the statements made by the Governor General in a throne speech, where she commended the under-15 team from St. Lucia for winning the Windward Islands under-15 competition, Madam Speaker. And I think we need to commend, because it is not the first time, and I don't think it will be the last time. In fact, Madam Speaker, Choiseul was very well represented on that team in the person of Mr. Sky Lafay, Well done. My community also has, on several occasions, been responsible for the high output of cricket in St. Lucia, either under 15, under 19, or even on West Indies youth program. And that is why I have continuously reminded the Minister of Youth and Sports the importance of ensuring the budget for sports in particular in the various communities is strong and vibrant. Back to the business of the Commerce Department. The department has in place a new model on how to engage micro and small enterprises. The Small Business Development Center, as we know, SBDC, is spearheaded by the Small Enterprise Development Unit, SEDU. Ever since SEDU has interchanged either as the SPDC or the SEDU. The primary advantage of using the SPDC model is as a means of delivering services to the micro and small enterprises sector are as follows. It uses a tier system of classifying enterprises and hence tailor different types of assistance to the relevant class in which the enterprise falls. It has dedicated trained business counselors assigned to each business and sector. It coordinates the inputs of other stakeholders such as financial institutions, academia, and research in the development of enterprise. It has an online tracking system that measures the level of effort and inputs dedicated to any enterprise or sector and is able to correlate this to the performance of the individual enterprise or sector. In that way, Madam Speaker, the growth path of the particular business is monitored and appropriate interventions can be introduced in a timely manner. Madam Speaker, the next step which is currently being implemented is to have the same system implemented throughout the Enterprise Development Division of the Ministry. In that way, the Tier 3 and 4 businesses, that is those firms that are either near to exporting or exporting companies, will receive interventions appropriate to their level, which will be monitored and evaluated. Madam Speaker, in the 2016-2017 financial year, 798 clients access SEDU services, a 19% increase over the previous year. Of the number that use SEDU services, the top 3 sectors from which they came were services, which is 65%, retail 19%, and manufacturing 8%. There were 638 business name registrations, of which 81% were sole proprietors and 19% partnerships. Through the management advisory services, a number of clients were able to launch their businesses, including the client who won the Young Entrepreneur of the Year award. This year's Chamber of Commerce in January, Madam Speaker, Mr. Johanan Dujon, owner of Algas Organics, another client of SEDU. Mr. Randolph Roseman, owner of Edge Designs, was also able to win a grant and training award worth $20,000 through the Chamber's Business Awards held in January this year. In addition, Madam Speaker, we assisted a number of other successful businesses such as Enchanted Kettle, Mellis Mix It Up, Alex Shaved Ice, and HRM Solutions, Inc. Madam Speaker, when I spoke about my warehouse dream for young entrepreneurs, I was laughed and scoffed at. But Madam Speaker, it is very important, and I am certain that during the tenure of this administration, we will ensure that we build these business incubators, because despite the contrary, Madam Speaker, despite what is being said out there, there are several young entrepreneurs alive and well in St. Lucia, and we have to help them reach their full potential. Through the outreach programs of SEDU, aimed at visiting at least one community per month, over the periods January to March of this year, the communities of Soufrière, Vieux-Fort, and Gros-Islet were visited, reaching 65 aspiring and existing entrepreneurs. In addition, over 145 participants attended a seminar organized in conjunction with the Royal Bank of Canada to promote e-commerce and related products to micro and small enterprises. In November of last year, SEDU also partnered with TIPA for Business Month. SEDU led the second annual finance symposium, which focused on attracting investors. over 100 local entrepreneurs participated and had the opportunity to meet with potential investors and financing agencies. In terms of developing its networking capacity and building strategic alliances, CEDU partnered with the St. Lucia Hotel and Tourism Association to open its membership to the SPDC clients at a concessionary rate. In addition, 6 SPDC clients got the opportunity to display their products at the St. Lucia Hotel and Tourism Association trade show, which is hosted every year during their AGM. In terms of some of the strategic activities that will engage CEDU or SPDC during this new fiscal year, the following will be embarked upon. In terms of policy, we will work to complete the micro, small, and medium enterprise policy. This is especially important as we embark on the development of a new private sector development strategy. As it pertains to providing technical support, we intend to build capacity and provide area on financial management, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, at this point, I must share with the House the news that through collaboration with the ECCB, the Savings Bank Foundation for International Cooperation, a German organization, we will be working in close collaboration with the Department of Commerce, the St. Lucia Chamber of Commerce, and some other financial institutions. They will all come together to help us build capacity to our local institutions. This is over a 7-year period, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it is no secret that one of the biggest challenges for businesses is access to funding. It is one of the biggest hurdles faced by businesses in their quest to establish and expand. Hence, Madam Speaker, any initiative that can lead to improvements in access to finance will be pursued by this government. In that regard, a training of trainers workshop for financial management will be conducted here in collaboration with the Savings Bank Foundation over the period July 3rd to 4th, 2017. Madam Speaker, another area that must be better understood in order to assist our businesses is value chain analysis. In that regard, over the period May 16th to 19th, the Department of Commerce, in collaboration with the OECS, will host the Global Value Chain Analysis Workshop. This has a research component spanning 1 year. This is sponsored by the OECS and facilitated by Duke University. Of course, Madam Speaker, the usual support rendered by CEDU will continue throughout the financial year. Madam Speaker, with respect to how we have interfaced with the medium and large businesses in the economy, our approach has been that of diagnosing the issues hindering growth and stifling competitiveness at the firm and sector levels. Through the use of incentives, we will boost competitiveness and expand both plant and range of products, reforming processes within government that negatively impact company efficiency. Madam Speaker, in the area of advocacy, using accepted international trade measures to provide domestic advantage for St. Lucian enterprises while seeking market access and establishing market presence, where St. Lucia has negotiated preferential conditions in foreign markets, and supporting enterprises reach their target markets through both domestic market promotion and export support. Madam Speaker, I will speak to institutional strengthening. Madam Speaker, with respect to institutional strengthening, the Department of Commerce, in collaboration with the Caribbean Development Bank, through the Caribbean Technology Consultancy Services Network, conducted workshops in the areas of management for development results, MFDR. This was targeted at business support agencies. Over 20 participants from agencies such as the Bureau of Standard, the James Belgrave Fund, the St. Lucia Chamber of Commerce, Junior Achievers Program, St. Lucia Industrial and Small Business Association, the St. Lucia Coalition of Services, and the St. Lucia Development Bank, among others, received training to improve their knowledge and understanding the key MFDR tools based on the international best practice that addresses business development for the MSMEs. In addition to the private sector organizations, officials from private sector institutions such as TIPA, The Department of Commerce and the Ministry of Agriculture and Health also received training. Madam Speaker, a training program on the use of the computerized management accounting systems, QuickBooks, was conducted with the assistance from the CDB, CTC for 23 persons. Greater knowledge was gained on how to use the system to generate financial reports and information. Support was also given to the St. Lucia Fashion Council, which seeks to provide an avenue for all stakeholders within the fashion industry to come together through an apex body for fashion design in St. Lucia. It shall represent the interests of all stakeholders in the supply chain and guide the development of the fashion-related industries. Cabinet approved the establishment of the apex body named the St. Lucia Fashion Council, the first in the region. Madam Speaker, it is an accepted fact that not all countries equal in terms of availability of natural resources, domestic population size, and level of development, just to name a few variables. Hence, special measures have been made available to assist such disadvantaged countries taking part in international trade. Within the regional framework of the CARICOM single market economy, St. Lucia has the provisions under Article 164 of the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas to provide a certain degree of protection for the growth of certain goods that we have the capacity to produce. Madam Speaker, St. Lucia will seek to identify other goods that can be placed under the Article 164 regime to provide even more opportunity for expansion of market share in both the domestic and regional markets. Marketing and promotion. The Department of Commerce, Madam Speaker, in partnership with the Embassy of the Republic of China, Taiwan, organized the 9th St. Lucia Taiwan Partnership Trade Show. Madam Speaker, this saw 60 local and 9 Taiwanese exhibitors at the Johnson Center in Rodney Bay. This trade show took place in November 2016. Madam Speaker, this trade show highlighted a wide range of goods and services from both St. Lucia and Taiwan, and it has been designed to propel government efforts towards a Buy Lucian drive. The emphasis to support local goods and services is critical at this time, given the need to support growth and expand outputs in the rail sector. Based on feedback from the St. Lucia Taiwan Partnership, participants now have an opportunity to generate sales at pop-up shops established at the Bay Gardens Hotel. Approximately 60% of the local participants gain access to new markets. At least 2 Taiwanese participants have confirmed their interest to attend the 2017 trade show. In fact, Madam Speaker, 1 Taiwanese participant was in negotiation with a St. Lucian businessman to serve as an agent or distributor. Madam Speaker, in an effort to promote St. Lucian products in the region and international market, TIPA in March this year conducted the first ever Specialty Caribbean Expo. And there were 155 participants, 70 from St. Lucia and the remaining 85 from the OECS. There were 30 regional buyers. Notwithstanding the large number of St. Lucians who visited the trade show, Madam Speaker, there were 20 major local buyers. The expo, Madam Speaker, led to a common space to showcase OECS exports. It provided an opportunity for networking among buyers, sellers, and other participants, and led to positive leads and secured potential and established exporters. Madam Speaker, in terms of the UK market, the Taste of St. Lucia campaign continued with the products from 6 firms featured at the themed event held in Yorkshire. One local company, namely Viking Traders, traveled to participate in this event. TIPA was successful in mobilizing the participation of 2 buyers who attended the Specialty Caribbean Expo in March this year, coming out of that Taste St. Lucia campaign. There were 2 other activities, Madam Speaker, that focused on penetrating the UK market. One was the Burton Agnes Jazz and Blues Festival, which was held in June 2016 in the United Kingdom. And Madam Speaker, in that expo, there were local scouts. And I'm happy to report, Madam Speaker, that 10 local artists participated in this event. the Scouts selected 7 of the 10 artists to partake in the Jazz Festival. TIPA is currently in discussion with the first 4 acts to mobilize their participation in the event. Confirmation of the other 3 acts is awaiting funding. The work of at least 3 local artists and 1 sculptress will be showcased in the venue gallery for a period of 2 to 3 months with the option to sell. Madam Speaker, as regards to the Canadian market, TIPA continues to benefit from the Trade Facilitation Office of our Canadian Responsive Facility. The Responsive Facility is an initiative under the Canadian Market Access and Capacity Building Service Program implemented by Trade Facilitation Office Canada. This office provides technical assistance and financial support to support our trade support institutions. This includes embassies, trade offices, consulates, and bilateral chambers of commerce in Canada. 2 of our exporters, namely NatMed and Baron Foods, participated in information sharing webinars conducted by the TFO. In addition, Madam Speaker, TIPA had an officer attached to the consulate office in Toronto during the period of June to August 2016 to investigate, explore, and expand on opportunities. In terms of the United States market, the St. Lucia Take It With You marketing and promotion campaign continued. TIPA has been working with 8 domestic firms from 3 sectors to provide an avenue to promote their products and services and secure importers. Madam Speaker, an examination of the composition of the GDP of our country will reveal that over 86% of the total value of goods and services produced by us in any calendar year is made up of services. Further, Madam Speaker, of the total value of our exports, over 88% constitute exports of services. Most of the employment created in this country is in the service sector. Paying attention to the service sector must therefore be a priority of this government. Madam Speaker, a draft service policy strategy and action plan has been completed with the assistance of the Caribbean Development Bank. And the strategy identifies 4 broad services sectors as priority and lists a number of interventions that must be undertaken to transform the services sector. These interventions range from establishing certain joint government and private sector governance structures for the sector in order for them to develop a separate incentive regime dedicated to the service sector. We have already prepared a memorandum to Cabinet, and we expect to have the first policy, strategy, and action plan to be approved by Cabinet within the first quarter of the new fiscal year. Madam Speaker, creating an environment conducive for the establishment and growth of businesses, which, whether domestic or foreign, is one of the key determinants of economic growth and development. As such, Madam Speaker, this government has paid careful attention to the report on how easy and efficient it is to conduct business in St. Lucia. In fact, Madam Speaker, numerous studies have shown that investors are more interested in the ease with which they are able to invest and conduct business in a country, the quality and the aptitude of the workforce, the reliability of the infrastructure, such as electricity, water, as the key determinants, as opposed to simply the receipt of incentives and in establishing a new business. As a result, Madam Speaker, this administration has made reforming the business environment a significant priority to attract new business investment and reposition St. Lucia as the #1 place to do business in the Caribbean. Notwithstanding the program already approved for reforming the business environment, this administration has moved to strengthen the policy input in driving the reform agenda by constituting a subcommittee of Cabinet comprising of 4 ministers, chaired by myself, to oversee the reform agenda on doing business in St. Lucia. We have in place an Ease of Doing Business Task Force, which is a technical team of public and private persons, chaired by my PS and charged with the responsibility of implementing the Cabinet-approved reform agenda. And so, Madam Speaker, I can report of some of the notable achievements of the department. The capability now for online payment of taxes, replacement of the exit note or release order required by the Customs and Excise Department to allow the entry of goods into St. Lucia by an electronic release, completion of the draft bankruptcy and insolvency bill, the commercial division of the High Court, which continues to effectively educate on commercial matters. Ongoing stakeholder consultations have been held with the Bar Association, accountants, government, and quasi-governmental agencies. A national forum was held only last month to take stock of our achievements and prioritize this area. Two critical areas of focus for us include the establishment of a single window to improve on trade facilitation and registering property. Madam Speaker, the Trade License Act is the only WTO-compliant tool that is available to us in this country to regulate what type of foreign investment and investor that is allowed to establish and conduct business in St. Lucia. This is a critical piece of legislation as it makes the difference between anyone in the world simply coming here and establishing any type of business. And as I said, from a bakery to opening a craft shop in Choiseul and competing with St. Lucians. It is part of the process that is used to allow for objective screening of investors to minimize the damage that investments, such as the infamous Lumbers Academy, can have on the reputation of St. Lucia as a place for doing business. However, Madam Speaker, this piece of legislation needs modernizing. And so the administration of the trade license regime was reviewed in December 2016. The report indicated that there are a number of inherent weaknesses that must be urgently addressed to more effectively administer the regime. These include strengthening dispute settlements and appeals, introducing a more robust enforcement and monitoring regime, and introducing regulations to give greater transparency. Work, Madam Speaker, is now complete, and the draft amendment to the Act and the internal review have been completed, and the list of areas reserved for nationals has been updated in keeping with our international trade obligations. Madam Speaker, allow me to speak a little bit on Invest St. Lucia, which falls under my portfolio. Madam Speaker, even while we undertake reforms to improve on the business climate in St. Lucia, we have been working assiduously to attract, facilitate, and retain foreign investments. Through Invest St. Lucia, the government of St. Lucia signed a multi-billion-dollar framework, which is the DSH, and I'm sure, Madam Speaker, we will hear a lot more of that during the budget process, the budget debate. Invest St. Lucia is working closely with the Citizen by Investment Unit as it relates to accessing the proposals of prospective investors, which forms part of the application and approval process for under the Citizen by Investment program. ISL, Madam Speaker, is currently in process with several strategic partners to undertake the redevelopment of duty-free Point Seraphine. ISL has also completed the relocation of all unauthorized occupiers on the lands at Auger and Sabuisha in Choiseul, thereby making it possible for major development, hotel development by the GP Group. In the process, the discomfort caused to students and teachers at the Auger Combined School by the livestock and poultry farmers have been addressed. Madam Speaker, ISL has invested significantly in the construction of a new road at duty-free Point Seraphine. This will assist with the traffic congestion on cruise ship days. The new road, which has been constructed in collaboration with the Ministry of Infrastructure, will also assist with the seamless dispatch of land-based stores. Madam Speaker, the area of standards is one of the most important areas for both private sector development and protection of consumers. Standards, quality assurance, accreditation, and metrology are the foundations on which purchasers, supplier, and technical regulation implementation is based. Developing countries such as St. Lucia can only enter the global market and have competitive products and services if they have implemented aspects of the SQUAM infrastructure. This infrastructure must, at the very least, ensure access to international standards and technical regulations, guarantee reliable measurements, and set up a system that will allow accreditation of their testing and certification facilities in such a way that the results of these bodies will be internationally accepted. Madam Speaker, let me just speak to some of the work of the Bureau, and also to commend them, Madam Speaker, because this year the Bureau became the holder of the ISO 901-2015 International Standard Certificate, which is a great achievement and the only one within our region, Madam Speaker. The conferring of this standard is based on the Bureau, means that the organization has demonstrated the standard where customers' needs and regulatory requirements are met consistently, and there are systems in place for business continuity and improve efficiency in this process. Madam Speaker, in the area of consumer protection, the Consumer Affairs Division is responsible for promoting consumer interests and welfare and competition law and policy. During the period under review, weekly visits are made to shops, distribution outlets, supermarkets, and all business houses. 100 shops were surveyed throughout the island, and 5 book surveys were conducted at 6 outlets throughout the island. 8 cement surveys were conducted at 23 outlets, and 4 field surveys were conducted for agricultural input. The department received 33 complaints. 29 or 88% were resolved. The value of the cases resolved amounted to $19,682. Madam Speaker, I want to report that the department conducted 2 special surveys. One, a survey which examined the level of satisfaction of consumers on the quality and price of consumer cable and internet purchase in St. Lucia. This survey was conducted, Madam Speaker, in light of 2 local providers merging. A survey of consumer perception of the relevance of price control in St. Lucia was also conducted. The objective of the second activity was to ascertain whether the price control mechanism was relevant in this era when the world is being liberalized.
Honourable Member, you have 15 more minutes within which to complete your presentation.
I will be done within a time, Madam Speaker. The findings revealed for Survey 1.
Madam Speaker, I'm enjoying the Honourable Member's contribution. I just want to remind him of...
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Yeah?
You are interrupting a member. Are you standing on a point of order?
6410. Just for the future, Madam Speaker, the member is going on very well, but I just want to tell him that he is raising matters of general principle instead of the estimates. But what you're doing is good. It's a little different, but I just remind you for the future.
I'm not hearing you.
Oh, 6410, signed on 6410. It says that on the report of the Standing Finance Committee we adopted, members may raise points as specific details of heads of expenditure in the report, but may not raise any matters of general principle. Just wanted to enlighten you on that.
I always appreciate. But Madam Speaker,
Honourable Member, the member for Castries East is actually correct, and it's something that I've noticed. And yes, I would want to bring it to attention of the House now that it is brought up, that 6410, under the motion, the debate on the motion, it will be as to specific heads on the estimates, please. And we need to at least keep the debate on that. Specific heads under this. So, members, please bear that in mind. Please continue, member for Choiseul Saltibus.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I understand the rules of the House, but sometimes it is important to, to ensure that your point is driven home, so you have to expound a little. But I understand the objection.
Member, are you asking me to explain a little further? No? Okay.
So, Madam Speaker, I sought to provide a sort of a condensed report of 2016-2017, and Madam Speaker, the information that going forward, Madam Speaker, I wish to first thank the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance for making the financial allocation that he has towards the development of the private sector. In terms of the approach that will be adopted to reposition the economy, to place the private enterprise as a driving force for growth and expansion, the following approach will be pursued. Madam Speaker, given that the information remains the most powerful tool for influencing change, and given the fact that St. Lucia is very dependent on trade, it is important, Madam Speaker, to increase technical knowledge of stakeholders on trade issues so that better feedback could be obtained from them. Madam Speaker, assist the private sector in taking advantage of market opportunities for export goods and services. Provision was also made, Madam Speaker, to serve as in terms of our awareness drive, Madam Speaker, to serve as a vehicle to attract foreign direct investment into St. Lucia, preferably through partnership joint venture arrangements, and help mainstream trade issues in the planning exercise of both government and the private sector. In terms of improving the business environment, work will focus on implementing the ease of doing business strategy. Specifically, attention will be placed on establishing a single window for trade facilitation in keeping with St. Lucia's commitments under the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement, and completing phase 1 of the project aimed at improving registering property in St. Lucia, and the development of modern secure transactions law and collateral registry as aspects of making it easier to get credit. In an effort to support the reforms, Madam Speaker, that will be undertaken in the business environment, a number of supporting policies will be implemented. Madam Speaker, first off, it is the intention of my department to develop a new private sector development strategy. The existing holistic policy document, which addresses private sector development, is the Industrial Development Policy, which is as old as 2001. Clearly, Madam Speaker, a lot has changed since then, and it is time for a fresh look at what strategic path that the private sector should entail. A new national export development strategy should be completed within this fiscal year. The existing strategy, which was developed in 2004, needs revising, and work has commenced, Madam Speaker, with technical and financial support from the International Trade Center. Financial support has also been sought from the Caribbean Development Fund. A new incentive regime for the manufacturing sector will be introduced, Madam Speaker. This regime will seek to ensure that all approved enterprises benefit from fiscal incentives upon establishment for a specified period of time. Thereafter, additional incentives will be determined by a range of criteria, which will include the extent of use of green technology, additional expansion undertaken, level of training, and provision to staff, among others. The intention is to reward companies for demonstrating evidence of continued improvement in a wide range of areas. This, Madam Speaker, is important given the level of dependence of St. Lucia's economy on the service sector. So, Madam Speaker, we are also going to develop a policy, strategy, and action plan for the service sector. Madam Speaker, it is a known fact that the private sector in developing countries such as St. Lucia requires all the assistance that can be obtained in order to compete and survive in this liberalized environment. As a result, Madam Speaker, government has provided a financial allocation that will focus on product and market development, a Buy St. Lucian campaign, a development of the fashion industry and implementation of this strategy and action plan for the service sector. In addition, specific sector studies will be undertaken to better understand the core constraints facing the sector so that a determination can be made of the types of intervention that can be implemented. As I approach the end of my contribution, Madam Speaker, and as we look forward in the area of consumer protection, it is my intention to implement strategies that will promote consumer welfare and facilitate a fair trading environment through enforcement of consumer protection legislation and competition law and policy. Madam Speaker, there has been a bit of delay in giving a commencement date for the Consumer Protection Act. But this was due, Madam Speaker, to ensuring that a few stakeholders were taken aboard in the new act. A commencement date will therefore be given shortly, paving the way for the establishment of the Consumer Protection Board and a Consumer Complaints Tribunal. Work, Madam Speaker, will continue at the level of the OECS with respect to the appropriate institutional arrangement to best serve the competition requirements of the sub-region. Finally, Madam Speaker, I wish to express my gratitude to my permanent secretary and the staff of my Department of Commerce, the members and boards of the statutory agencies which fall under my direction, for the support and advice that has been given to me over the last 10 months. I am indeed blessed with a professional and a competent team of persons to work with. I must also thank the various business support organizations, such as the St. Lucia Manufacturing Association, the St. Lucia Chamber of Commerce, the Coalition of Services, and SLISVA, for their frank discussions that we have had and for their support. I look forward to working with all of them as we move forward to making St. Lucia the best place to live, work, and conduct business. I thank you, Madam Speaker.